Hi everyone, welcome to my reflection for Good Friday. But having said that, Good Friday, how good is it? I've always had a bit of a problem with calling Good Friday Good Friday. How could it ever be seen as having been a good day? When I first came to faith, I used to question people about this each year, and one of the answers I would inevitably get from people would be something like, well, without Good Friday, there would be no Easter Sunday. And I know what people meant by saying that, but in reality, that is avoiding a very important fact. That on the very first Good Friday, Easter Sunday had not ever happened. So to only think about the events of Good Friday in the light of the resurrection is actually doing it a disservice. Those who experienced that first Friday of Holy Week would not have called it good. Part of the problem for us today is the change in our language, because when first used in this context, the word good actually meant holy. So it was originally known as Holy Friday, as we have Holy Week. And that meaning gets us much closer to what the day is all about, because it is a very holy, special day. But we still have further to travel than that. People often say in general that hindsight is a great thing to have, but in this context, it's a very bad thing. To more fully understand the events of Holy Friday, we have to do our best to try to forget all about the resurrection. We have to put ourselves into the shoes of those who walked with Jesus, and to do our best to understand how the events of that dreadful day would have affected them. Today and tomorrow, I'd like you to spend some time reading through the events of Maundy Thursday and Good Friday, as if you were one of the characters in it. Maybe use the stories in John or one of the other Gospels. But as you read them, for this time, maybe for the first time, try to immerse yourself in the story and reflect on what the people involved in it may have been thinking at the time. Maybe imagine you were one of the disciples who had given up everything to follow Jesus for 3 years, and to whom Jesus had become not only their teacher, but their closest friend. Maybe you would better relate with Mary Magdalene, whose life had been completely changed through the healing power, love, and acceptance of Jesus for who she was. Maybe think of how Mary, the mother of Jesus, would have felt watching her son following this path in life, knowing where it would ultimately lead, helpless to do anything about his choices in life. Or maybe you could be Nicodemus, one of the rulers of the Jewish council, who, despite being a member of the group of leaders who were plotting against Jesus, was also a secret believer in him. Or think of any other character in the story. Maybe just imagine that you were somebody in the crowd while all the events were taking place. But whoever you pick, try to imagine how they would have felt as they watched the events of that fateful day unfold. Not as a prelude to Easter Sunday, but as a day in itself. Each of those people closest to Jesus in their own way would have had their lives shattered as they witnessed not only Jesus, but also all their own hopes and dreams for the future nailed to the cross that day. In addition to that, many of them would now be living in fear for their own lives, hiding away, wondering if the next knock at the door could be some of the authorities coming to take them away to suffer the same fate as Jesus, because they knew they were one of his followers. It's so hard to immerse ourselves into the events of Holy Friday and to relate to what those early disciples must have gone through, as we know that the story has a happy ending. But they didn't have that viewpoint. So try our best, maybe, to just consider for one day how some of them must have felt. As I look at the world today and maybe considering our own present situation in the midst of a worldwide pandemic, this actually may help us a little to do this. We would all accept that at the moment our lives have been transformed through events beyond our control. The routine of life which made us feel so secure in the past has been stripped away. Maybe we live in fear of contracting the virus and of what it might do to us. Maybe the pain of being separated from our loved ones is hard to bear. Maybe we wonder what the future will hold for us or for our children. I know that the thought of that this pandemic will not last forever is something that enables people to keep going and to get through each day, knowing that if we follow the advice that we are given, that the spread of the virus will reduce, as will the risk of our own infection. And we also believe that one day it will be over. But just imagine that that was not the case. Imagine that this is it. That this is going to be the new normal for our life. When you take away the possibility of a happy ending, the weight of the burdens that we have to carry can easily become completely overwhelming. To imagine that might begin to get us just a little closer to how those disciples felt when they saw Jesus mocked, humiliated, stripped and beaten and nailed to a cross. Just a little closer, maybe. Also, however awful it must have felt for the disciples, even their experience pales into insignificance when compared to what our Lord himself went through, as he experienced not only being abandoned to his fate by all those he loved, but also by the one whose loving embrace he had known from since before the beginning of time. Why have you forsaken me? If you have had the courage to walk the way of the cross during this past week, then please resist the temptation to charge on ahead to Easter Sunday. Feel the pain of the disciples. Wait with Jesus. Look deeper into the events of that awful day and ask God to take you deeper into the mystery of his love. The more we are prepared to do that, the more powerful the message of the resurrection will become to us. And however hard it may be for us to do, unlike Jesus, the one thing that we do not have to do is to walk that path alone. Have a thoughtful couple of days, and hopefully I'll see you on Easter Sunday with some good news. Keep praying, keep believing, and keep safe. Amen.